Hello and welcome to Good Games Well Played, episode 194. I'm Clint, aka JCM. With us this week is Isley.
Yo.
And Zai isn't feeling well, so Zai won't be here. We had a good week. Not a ton of stuff, but we had some big things with the Sony State of Play, and there was also the Dice Awards. We won't cover all of the Dice Awards. It was kind of a blowout for a couple games. And unlike the Game Awards, there's no trailers, but it's nice to have just being all about the games there. But we are getting some... Astro Bot got some DLC this week on the 13th. It's the first of 5 expansions coming to the PlayStation platformer. And apparently it's a couple stages. So TikTok Shock's the first level available that's right now. And it's got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 stages. So it's like each DLC will be like one of those little, kind of like in the first game, it was like one little section was like 4 levels. And I think in the second one, it was kind of the second way where it was like each little planet was like, a couple levels within it that every time you go to them. So it's nice that it's like, okay, here's a couple levels. I didn't look up to see what it was themed around, and whatnot, but it got some DLC coming to it, so that's fun.
Are they paid expansions or free?
I think they're free. I don't see anything. It just says they released on Thursday. Unlike our last update, Winter Wonder, which was a walk through the Xmas Park, the new update features harder levels to test your jumping skills. Each level comes with a brand new special bot to rescue, and once that's done, can be replayed in time attack mode with online ranks. It sounds like it's just free DLC.
God, that game keeps on giving.
Yep. And then Elden Ring Nightreign also got a release date confirmed, coming out on May 30th. Be $40. And I know a bunch of people played it, and there's some videos out there, people talking about, what to expect from the gameplay, the loop, yada, yada, yada. So if you're interested in Elden Ring Nightreign, go ahead and check those out. I'm trying to avoid all the details just because I want to go in kind of as blind as I can be, even though I know it's based on, Elden Ring and other stuff. So it's like, okay, I know what to expect, but kind of the gameplay loop, I just want to be like, I'll just wait till, it comes out. But yeah, the big thing this week was the State of Play for Sony. We talked last week that, hey, there's rumors that it's going to happen. And then, of course, I think it was Wednesday, they're like, hey, we have one coming tomorrow. And it's like, all right, there you go. It's like they have 1 or 2 days before, and they announced that they're going to have a State of Play. It was like 40 minutes long. So it was like as long as like a PlayStation Direct that they would do. But I'm trying to see, oh my God, this is the worst part about, is this shit in order? No, it is not. I always hate when I look up, hey, what was at the State of Play? And I want it in order, and it's not in order on the site I'm reading it from.
They never release them in order. It's always some like arbitrary order of like importance or what's interesting.
Yeah, and I wish they wouldn't do that. Like they do. I know some people do post in order of release, but it's rare to find like sites that do that because they'll want to put like here's one that's actually in order. Okay, Polygon's got it in order. Okay, so in order of the showcase, we'll kind of go that way. They showed more Monster Hunter Wilds. Like okay. Then they showed Shinobi Art of Vengeance, which is the franchise coming back. I like the art style for that one. Don't know if I'll necessarily play it, but I was like, you know what? I might check it out. Like if it's discounted or I need something to play. It looked like it could be pretty fun. We had Sonic Racing Cross Worlds shown. I know we had a teaser of it previously, I think, at the Game Awards. Now they showed like the actual gameplay. Then there was a trailer for Digimon Story Time Stranger, which was like, when it started out, I'm like, what the heck is this? Like, everybody thought, it was funny watching reactions for that, because it was like, is this Persona? Is it Persona-like? What the heck is this? They're saying all that's what you expect in JRPGs, then it's like, Digimon. Like, I guess, Digimon fans are like super excited.
Digimon was one of the first ones. I mean, Digimon made, not by itself, obviously, but it was like one of the big ones that made anime and Japanese culture popular for a generation here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Then there was a game called Lost Soul Aside. I don't recall if this was previously announced. There was some of the traversal stuff looked fun, like when the main character was like running, and there's like that black, like, I could just call them tiles. They're kind of like going around, and then they get wings, and then they like run on them. Like it looked pretty fun. It was like, I like a good traversal. Like running in Forspoken is fun, and I'm sure running in Atlas Fallen is probably fun as well, because you kind of like skate across the sand. Like I like good locomotion in games, and that looks like, hey, maybe it's got some fun movement, but we'll see. Then there's Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii was shown again. There's demo goes live. Well, it already went live. So if you're interested in playing a demo for that, you can check it out. Then we have more DLC for Dave the Diver. It's like the Fall Guys of games. It feels like just so many.
Dude, Dave the Diver is just everywhere. I don't understand it.
Yep. WD2K25 for those who are interested in that. Borderlands 4 got a launch date trailer, so that's coming out September 22nd. When I watch, I'm like, okay, it's more Borderlands, which I'll probably play if my cousin plays, I'll play it. But there's that one part in the trailer where they use like a whip to launch themselves like over some enemies. I'm like, okay. Speaking of traversal, like if that whip is every character and you can move around that way and there's not like, it's not super limited, that could be a lot of fun. But it's kind of a wait and see.
Borderlands has definitely just entered the wait and see, like, not genre, but it's been too samey for too long for me that every time I see things like that, I definitely just want to, yeah, it is wait and see. They need new ideas, and I need to be convinced that Borderlands 4 has a different feel to the story and also introduces some new mechanic. Like, every game has basically been exactly the same.
Yeah. And that game like feels like it could benefit a lot from like a parkour, kind of like Dying Light style perhaps, or just again, that whip and just like better maneuverability or like a teleport dodge or something. Like I don't know, you need like I feel like cuz it's just not that fast running and gunning. Like I feel like if they can the movement's what they need to tweak. Like the gunplay is still fun for me. Just tweak the player movement. Like give us some take some lessons from like Apex or something. Give you like a zip line you could set up or a bracelet you can throw that you teleport to. Just some ways to move a jump pad like for Octane or something like movement. I feel like that's what you need to improve. Is just player movement through an area to attack enemies and not just like run up, use your abilities from afar or what have you, or get close if you're melee. But like just change the movement, make it a little better. I feel like that's what they could do. But who knows? Well, that's a wait and see.
Movement or like deeper RPG elements. It just needs to move in some direction. Like the looter shooter, I really like the genre, and Borderlands kind of started it back up. I mean, Borderlands 1 was people played the hell out of that, but it has just a lot of ideas they haven't really refined on or given any thought to in a while. And like, yeah, movement's a good example of one. I would love to see if they wanted to go this route, different types of like crafting or weapon customization. They haven't really. Like Borderlands 1 had all the random weapons and they boasted, whatever million or billion unique weapons it was. But even refining that so the weapons feel better. I like the shooting, but you could definitely improve the feel of guns. They feel kind of light. You could make them a bit more like Destiny or something like that, which I kind of consider Bungie to be somewhat of like the gold standard of how guns feel in a game. There's like lots of things they could do. They just need to pick a route and go with it.
Yeah, but let's see what happens when it comes out. Hopefully, they'll have some more. They obviously have more showcases leading up to. They did say there's like going to be a state of play, or some better focus of it later on. So we'll see. Maybe some of the abilities that the characters have will be really interesting or something. But then we had another trailer for Split Fiction, which of course we're all looking forward to. That was of course shown at the Game Awards, so nothing new there. It was just like more of a story-focused trailer. Then we had a story trailer for Directive 8020, which we teased a while ago. There's a cinematic teaser for it, and it's a new Dark Pictures game. And yeah, I'm looking forward to giving that a try. It comes out October 2nd, so a bit of a ways out, but it makes sense for that Halloween time. Then there was Five Nights at Freddy's Secrets of the Mimic, another trailer for Midnight Walk, which comes out on May 8th for PS5 and PSVR 2. Then there was Darwin's Paradox, which is like this octopus game, kind of like Inside Limbo. It felt like, but more silly. But like you're sneaking around, and you can use your ink for stuff, and you can hide and blend into the environment. I thought that was fun because I like that idea versus like Limbo and like Inside and those kind of games. It's like, oh, in order to hide, or like Little Nightmares, it's like you have to hide behind something or in something. This is like, oh, you can hide in the open. So it's like it's just a timing thing. I think that's kind of fun, but it looks interesting. We'll see. Then there's a Warrior's Abyss, which is, I believe that was like that Musou style, but also like roguelite as well or something, like combo. But, not my kind of game, but it was announced there. Then we had Onimusha 2, Samurai's Destiny remaster trailer shown. I'm like, okay, yeah, we know it got announced, so just more of that. And then another trailer for Onimusha Way of the Sword. Kind of focusing
a lot of Onimusha.
Yeah, and Talking Gauntlets. It's like, all right, Talking Gauntlets are still a thing in games right now. Then we had the Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater trailer, which is just a remake of a trailer from back in the day, shot for shot, which I like when they do that. when there's a remake for something, they just remake the exact same trailer.
That game is one where like I feel like we talked about it a long time ago, and then I just forgot it existed. Because that's not a new one, right? Like that they announced that a while ago, correct?
Metal Gear Solid Delta was announced at, I think it might have been, it was at either Sony or PlayStation. I think it was at, no, it was at Xbox. Is that Sony or PlayStation? It was at Xbox. It was an Xbox showcase. It was like, I think, and it was like, the teaser for it was like you see an ant, and then like the ant gets eaten, and then this bird like flies away, and it goes somewhere and you hear gunshots. It's like in the woods or in like a jungle. And it goes right, and you see some like alligators, and then you see another alligator, and then it's like suddenly, snake pops up, and it's like, oh, it's Metal Gear Solid Delta, and that got announced at it was at an Xbox showcase. That's when it got announced. That was a while ago. So we've already seen it, and they've had other trailers for it and whatnot. And it's just a new trailer with the release date on it. So yeah, Metal Gear Solid Delta. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. That trailer shows a lot too. I forgot. I think that was one of those like either trailers for the game that might have been done for like subsistence, because they showed a lot. I'm like, I don't remember seeing a bunch of stuff. Not that I was watching a ton of trailers back when MGS3 came out. It's not like YouTube was a big thing back then. So I was like, they really shown a bunch in this trailer here, especially for anybody who hasn't played the game. But what have you. And they showed another trailer for Hell Is Us with the release date of September 4th. That's one I'm interested in. Elias Tufexis, I believe that's how his last name's pronounced. He's the voice of the protagonist. It looks interesting, but I'm curious, to see more and how it'll play. But I'm interested in that one. It's on my radar. Then, long-awaited Lies of P DLC Overture got announced. Everybody's been waiting for that one. And I guess it's a leading up to the events of what happens in the game. It was content that they said was cut to save time. And I kind of like how Lies of P starts, where it's in media res. And I talk about, like, that's one of the things I really like about Lies of P is that it's not Elden Ring or Souls game where events happened thousands of years ago. And you're someone in a cycle way later, and you're just one who happens to like succeed in this breaking the cycle or restarting the cycle. It's like you're in the middle of the shit, like things went bad, and you kind of learn about the world as you go through. And I really like that about Lies of P.
I like that about Lies of P too. I wasn't the most excited about the DLC though. I mentioned this in chat, but like I kind of felt like they took like the least interesting thing about Lies of P in order to make it prequel DLC. Like I actually think Lies of P had a lot of really interesting ideas, and I'd love to see like other areas of the world, or obviously they, spoilers for End of Lies of P, they tease a very obvious DLC approach, or I thought DLC, but actually maybe just different game. But the one thing I like never cared about learning more about was the prequel. Like I feel like they actually explain it really well through Lies of P, and that the entire Lies of P game structure is kind of, you find hints and clues as to what happened before you woke up. Like there are clues throughout the game over what actually happened and transpired and who you are and how that all went down. So it's kind of like introducing a prequel that explains that almost feels like it takes away from the main game for me of like discovering what actually happened.
Yeah, I'm just like, obviously it's not the sequel. Like I'm sure the sequel will follow in more how the game ended and in that route, following Paracelsus and whatnot, and then everything else. But I'm all for more Lies of P. So like even story wise, like that's fine. I just want to play the game and fight bosses, get new weapons, and yada yada. I am interested to see though, like how it fits in, because like okay, because it was supposed to be part of the base game. Like you play leading up, kind of like Resident Evil 3 style. Then the events happen, but P's out of commission. And then P comes back. So I'm wondering, like, does it end with like P getting destroyed and then rebuilt, and that's why you wake up on the train? Like, I'm just curious from that point of view. Like, is that how it's gonna, like, it has to end? It's like a Halo Reach situation. Like, you're gonna lose. You have to lose.
Right.
But I'm down for more Lies of P. And it seems like you're exploring other parts of the Krat you hadn't gone to, because they have that like adventure or whatever they call like the woolly mammoth bit. But then like, is this before Alidoro, like the real Alidoro, dies? Because they show up, and I'm like, when I first watched, I'm like, oh, it's the dude that took his place, or took the traitor's place. And it's like, no, this is a prequel. I'm like, okay, is it the real one before they died? It must be before they died saving those people. I'm like, okay, that could be interesting.
It could. I will say, like, there could be interesting ideas for it. I'm not against it because I really enjoyed the gameplay of Lies of P, but I do think like they could go a weird direction. You know, maybe the prequel is not what we expected, and what we learned through the game isn't actually like the whole story. And then they reveal that little tidbit of info or whatever that kind of throws everything into a different perspective. Like that would actually be pretty cool. Um, but I I did want, I think most of it is just like I wanted the Dorothy DLC. I thought that was such a cool idea for DLC, and I was looking forward to that. So I'm all for more Lies of P. I think that Lies of P was a really good game. I had a lot of fun with it. So I will take what I can get.
Yeah, yeah. I'll have fun with it regardless, like it prequel or not. And so I've played a lot of games where like it's either the sequel is a prequel or even DLC leading up to the events. Like I like that for like the Dead Space game that came out. We had it was on the Wii. I played that one. It's like okay, that was whatever. But then they did DLC for Dead Space 2, I think it was, where you play like leading up to what happens in that game. I thought that was fun, but there's like a pretty big gap. So I'm curious like how big of a gap it'll have. But anyways, it'll be fun. More Lies of P is going to be good.
Yeah.
So I look forward to that. There's a game called Dreams of Another, pixel junk game. Like, all right, you shoot to create. Sure, there you go. Go to town. Days Gone Remastered, which I guess had been rumored, but I didn't hear anything about it. I'm like, that's such a weird.
That one kind of surprised me because I was like, you guys, eliminated any potential ability for Days Gone to come back. So, kind of, why bother remastering it unless they're trying to spark more interest in it again, which would be really cool.
And I'm like, because someone said on a podcast, I think it might have been kind of funny or something, but like typically the reason you do like a remaster or something is to spark interest in a franchise that you're keeping going or has a sequel coming out. Like not necessarily all the time. Like Death Stranding got the director's cut, which wasn't a remaster, but it was like the Death Stranding director's cut. It's like okay, you didn't know that there was going to be Death Stranding 2 at the time. But it's like yeah, typically Horizon remastered because you have another Horizon game coming, or yada yada. It's like, but this is like it was so weird. Like you're not continuing this franchise.
It's not all the time, but it is usually what that implies is they're bringing it back. So when I saw the remastered, of course my first thought was like, are you bringing this back? Did you realize you made a mistake? And then I went on the rabbit hole of what the studio. I know the studio had issues, but I was like, where did the people go? Where do all these people work? And I'm like, no, you can't bring this back unless you have like a really big surprise coming in a year or two that secretly people are working on the sequel. But it was just, it was a weird one to remaster because people generally liked the game. It needed some tweaks, but it would have really benefited from a sequel where they could actually like expand upon things. So it's, I don't know why they remastered it. That was a weird surprise.
Yeah. And at least it's a thing where it's like if you already have it, it's it's $10 to upgrade. Because that's a game I could see like I enjoyed my time with it. Like I thought it was fun. I thought the horde's really cool, and I guess like the hordes are bigger in some sort of horde mode specific thing. But like I had fun with it. It was a little too long. I felt like, but I liked the whole bit of like driving around. And it's like okay, I'm running out of gas. I gotta find a gas station and then fill up. But make sure that I, clear out the areas. I had fun. Like it was fun playing that game. Again, taking out the hordes and whatnot, and just a little too long. So I could see maybe going back at some point, for $10 and play like a better version of it. It's like, that's not bad at all. Like I like the $10 upgrades if you own some. And there was some crossover DLC, Stellar Blade and Goddess of Victory Nikki DLCs. Like, okay, sure. But what excited me was that Blueprints, a game that I'm excited for, I have on my wish list on Steam, is coming to not only PlayStation Plus, but also Game Pass when it launches in the spring. So that's awesome. It's like now I can take it off Steam and I can just pick it up on PlayStation Plus because
I don't even know if I've heard about this game. What game is it?
Northern Light played it a while back. If you want to watch any of his VODs, it's like a Blueprint roguelike where essentially you go to this house. And like the idea is like each estate you go to has a different like layout or design. And basically you're trying to get from point A to point B. So from the foyer to the final room. And the game like gives you an option of like a bunch of cards that are blueprints. And you like, oh, this one's a hallway. So you have like in the foyer, obviously you have 3 directions. You can go forward or left or right. But like depending on how the design of the floor plan, it could be like, okay, maybe it's only like a 5 by 10. It's like, okay, so if I put a hallway that goes left, that means I only have whatever I put, I only have one space. So whatever comes off the hallway has to be a blueprint that turns to the right, or at least has a right exit door. And every step and you'll have a limited number of steps. So every new room you step into takes one step off your max. And if you run out of steps, you lose your run and you have to start over. But each room also has its own unique perks. Like a room might spawn a key or spawn food, and food like regenerates your steps. Or it can spawn these coins that you can use in other aspects. And it's like, oh, there's also blueprint rooms for like outside, like let's say like a patio. But a patio can't be put down in the center of a house. It has to be put on the edge of the floor plan. So like, oh, I know if I have this, porch area, I could put it down. And porches usually have like spots you can dig if you find the shovel in another spot later. And it's like, okay, I can dig up some useful items. So I'm on the edge of the floor plan. Let's put in a porch tile. And now it's like, oh, now I can dig up a bunch of stuff, get out. And there's like, and as you go up, there's also like different tiers where it's like, so if it's a 5 by 10, like that first floor, it can be like all basic. You can put all floor plans in it. But then later there's more advanced ones, like, oh, there's a security room. Oh, there's this room. And those can only be placed on like rows 3 or higher. And again, the idea is you're trying to get from the front of the building to the back of the building. And there's other stuff, but again, it's got those roguelike elements where it's always kind of randomized, but then you start to familiarize yourself with the rooms. Like, okay, the pantry is like really good because it's going to give me a bunch of food to increase my steps, but it's going to have a dead end because it's a pantry. So I can strategically place that down somewhere, or you might know there's a floor plan that when you put it down, one of the doors is always locked. So you got to make sure you have a key or something. You can watch NL play the demo. They had demos up for a while. I don't know why they don't have a permanent demo. They had a demo a while back. I was going to play a game. I was like, I'm just going to wait for the main game.
That does sound like kind of a fun game. I hadn't even heard about it before, but I love roguelikes, and that seems like an interesting twist on one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was really looking forward to it. And I know like a lot of people who played it are like, oh, this is like one of my most anticipated, which is kind of crazy for this little tiny game. But I'm looking forward to it. It should be fun. And then Abiotic Factor got announced. It's coming to PlayStation this summer, probably Xbox as well. Then there's a game called Tides of Annihilation, which was announced. I'm trying to pull up more information here from another site that was covering it. Where'd it go? Tides of Annihilation. Let's see here. It's a single-player, narrative-driven action game that combines. I love when you ever read combined stuff. It's like, quote, intense breakneck combat, an immersive narrative, and an unforgettable setting. Okay, Tides
perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Takes place in modern-day London. It's been taken over by otherworldly forces. So it's what's that one game, Pandora or whatever it was, like the London Pandora or something like that, where it's like it was a PS3 game. You don't remember? It was a first-person shooter PS3 game where like someone opened Pandora's box in London, and there's a bunch of like monsters and creatures that attack the city, and it was like looked promising.
This does sound familiar, but I can't.
Yeah, but when it came out, it's like, yeah, it's just okay. Players take on the role of Gwendolyn and will be able to call on the Knights of the Round Table to help her in combat. Oh, and you got to fight bosses. Okay, so I mean, it looks fun. It looks like an action, DMC style thing. Like it looked fun when I was watching it. And his voice, I believe the voice actor that's doing the main character is, oh my god, I'm totally blanking on her name. She does Shadowheart in Baldur's Gate 3. I'm blanking on her name right now. But I mean, it looked interesting. Like I was like, okay, this could be good. But it's kind of ways. I think it's a Chinese developer. I think maybe they don't list the developer here. But I got a new game for them. Maybe not, but I have to go back and check. And then there was a game that was shown after that called Metal Eden. And I couldn't tell if this was like a spiritual successor to Metal Hellsinger, because it seemed like it had music going and it's by Rycon Games. Oh no, they only did Ruiner. Okay, so they did Ruiner. It's like, because it felt like Metal Hellsinger, but without the beat timing that you normally get in that game. But it felt like it. Like, oh, maybe this is just like again, spiritual successor to it, and that's why there's no like, it's not a rhythm shooter, but it feels like it could be. That looks like it'd be fun. Sci-fi. I was gonna say sci-fi Doom, but Doom's already got sci-fi elements in it. But Could be interesting. Then there was a game called Mind's Eye. Mind's Eye is by the former Rockstar producer. I'm trying to remember. I'm blanking on his name. Oh man, this is the worst part about reading the list of the announcements that's in order is they don't give you any details, and I have to go to the one that actually talked about it. Is that Leslie Benzies?
I'm kind of like, did we even watch the same show? Half of these games I'm like don't remember, and I'm kind of surprised that I just don't remember half of these.
I don't know. Hey, maybe after you watch it, you got to go back and watch like a React channel,
Clearly,
or something. I don't know. It was the former lead GTA series developer Leslie Benzies. Mind's Eye. I mean, it looks like standard stuff, AI, corporate greed, yada yada. But it looks like a GTA like, but more serious. And I mean, it looks like something I would play if it's fun. And story, if the story's decent, it's like probably going to be pretty predictable, to be honest. But it's like it looks like it could be good. I mean, there's not too many games like obviously there's Cyberpunk, but there's not too many games that are like if it's open world and run and gun and drive and whatnot. I'm like but it's third person. I'm like there's not too many of those. Like Saints Row didn't do well.
Saints Row was fun though, but yeah, it didn't do well.
Yeah, I think once because they did a major update to it a while after it launched, and from everything I heard after that update that they did, which I think changed a lot of the combat stuff, people really liked it. But at that point, it's kind of like you're a little too late for that. But so I thought about going back. I think it might have been part of PlayStation Plus. Maybe I do have it in my Plus library. Because I was listening to I think Jeff Markiafava on MinMax was talking about where he's like I think he played the OG one, but then he went back and played it after that update, and he said he had a lot of fun. And really, that's what it's all about. Like a story can be whatever, but if it's fun to play it, like yeah. I guess like I mean that's essentially like what oh my god, what's that one game he plays? What's his name? Rico. Why am I blanking on the name? Just Cause, where it's like the stories can be whatever. It's just fun to like traverse. Again, a game all about traversal and doing crazy shit. Like there's none of those right now, so it's like and this is a more serious take. If it's fun to go around and shoot stuff and do whatever. I mean, Watch Dogs is kind of dead, so there's not a whole lot of third person open world. I don't want to call them like GTA likes, but you know what I mean, like those kind of games.
I mean, there aren't many games that compete with that anymore. They all did kind of die off.
Yeah, but yeah, it's like they're all if they are third person open world, they're typically fantasy style or so not too many of these that are more like present or slightly future day set. Like in Watch Dogs Legion was kind of the last one, I feel like. But I'm interested in that one. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
And then I guess the last one they showed was Saros from Housemarque. And when I saw it, I'm like, okay, everybody kind of. I was like, oh, it kind of looked like, is this like a Helldiver suit in this character? Like that was a lot of people's reactions trying to figure out like what game is this? I knew it wasn't Death Stranding because I'm like, this doesn't look the pillars. I was like, that's not Death Stranding. Even though it was on a beach. Rahul Kohli's the main character. And yeah, it's a kind of essentially just a spiritual successor to Returnal. Like Returnal's going to stand on its own, and then they got this game coming out building on the foundation.
I was pretty excited about this, and I feel like it didn't actually get as much attention or positive reception as I expected. That people didn't super seem excited about it, but it does feel like it's Returnal. I mean, it's a roguelike. You move through the world with combat that looks like Returnal, and then as you die or win and succeed, they even had the tagline that like the world responds to you and changes based on how you perform and what you do. So I was kind of like, yeah, this basically sounds like you're doing Returnal 2, which I am all for because Returnal was one of my like surprise hits. I really enjoyed that game. So yeah, more of that is great to me.
Yeah, as soon as when the giant monster thing, well, obviously he says like but the cycle begins again. But every time I come back, I'm like, okay, this is a Housemarque game, and then it's like, yeah, then the when all the hands on the giant monster like get the glowy orbs, I'm like, okay, and then it's like, yeah, you see the reflection eyes, I'm like, yep, this is definitely Housemarque. Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since they've done anything, but yeah, I do like to say there will be a permanent progression system, and every death reshapes the world. We're offering new upgrades and to overcome challenges. So I'm curious, like, because I was trying to think, like, in the only like the way you make progress outside of when you first get the sword, I don't think do you get the whip that like you traverse with. Speaking of traversal, Do you get that whip right away in Returnal? Is that like one of your first traversal items, or do you have to unlock that? Because I think it's like you unlock the.
You don't get it right away,
Okay.
but you do like you unlock new traversal items that I'm not sure what the gatekeep is, like whether it's I think some are progression and I think some are like quantity of death. But I'm not super sure, what triggers some of them to spawn and appear. But then you also have like story elements that obviously change
Hmm.
depending on how far you've gotten. So like the world changes both with gameplay and what you find and story elements. I don't know. I'm excited.
It'll be cool. I mean, because it could be like, okay, if it's just one big world, like versus 6 biomes, it's like, okay, it's one big world, and maybe each death you cycle through different, stages. Something. Okay, how many different? I mean, if they're procedurally generated like they were in Returnal, like you could have potential for that. But if they're big open areas, and obviously that's not the gameplay where he wakes up on the beach, there's a giant open area behind him. But it's like it could be interesting if it's just one big place that changes, and then you don't have the biomes just happen on death. Like that could be interesting. And the permanent regress, like again, I was just thinking about that because I was like, okay, well, there's no permanent upgrades in Returnal, so I'm curious like what they could do to keep it, still roguelite, where it's like, okay, maybe you have if you find it in a run of like here's your max HP, because like obviously something you had to go and find those, or get enough of the healing items to increase your max boost, or find the parasites that do it. So I'm curious, like it's because that I feel like that seems like a way to potentially help players who not necessarily going like an Elden Ring route, but like okay, maybe we make like HP plus bonuses max, or attack output, or ammo like clip size or something like that increases and is a permanent thing. That way, people who are struggling, as long as they can make that little progress to one of those things that improve a stat permanently, it's a snowball effect of slowly helping them get better and better versus like just starting from scratch, which is what a roguelike is. And it's
Hmm.
like, which I was fine with, but I can understand people having difficulty playing Returnal, being it too hard, being bullet hell and whatnot as well.
God, I feel like Returnal had some saved elements, but maybe it didn't. I guess like as you went further in Returnal, you did get weapons that you
If you
unlocked new weapons, and some of the weapons were better suited for things.
Yeah, every new weapon you found would then be possible to roll in the weapon pool of a new run. So you had to find them and pick them up, and then also using the weapons would unlock new bonus tiers to them. So it's like,
Right.
oh, now I've used my assault rifle enough. Now it has this bonus, so I could pick up this rocket launcher I just found, but my assault rifle, I'm still working towards bonus number 2 or something. Or it's like, now it's an assault rifle, but it shoots slow and then fast, or it's an assault rifle that does big powerful shots or something. Like you unlock those. So that was kind of like what you were working towards. That would kind of randomize on each weapon. But yeah, otherwise than that, it's like every time you start that first gun you get, like you have your pistol, but then the first gun you find is going to be randomized, and yada yada yada. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited because I'm like, man, I was like, I'd love to replay or do more Returnal. Like this is essentially just more Returnal.
Yeah, Returnal was great.
Yep. And yeah, that was it for the state of play. Good showcase. They did announce a bunch of. I think they announced like PlayStation Plus games. I think Jedi Survivor coming to PS Plus,
Yep.
and then a bunch of games coming to PS Plus Premium. Some of like the first 3 Armored Cores and whatnot. But yeah, that was kind of the showcase. Good showcase. I felt like solid.
It was longer than I expected. It had its ups and downs, but I feel like you're never going to love everything about a showcase, and this one had enough that I enjoyed that as a whole I liked the showcase.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then we also had the Dice Awards this week. I forgot that they were on Thursday, I think, or maybe it was Friday night. And it was kind of crazy. Like I don't know if you watch them, but like Helldivers, Astrobot, Balatro, and Indiana Jones are kind of like the Astrobot and Balatro, especially in Helldivers, like were the big sweeps in their categories.
Yeah,
It
none of
was
that surprises me.
it was kind of nuts. Like Balatro, I expected to win a bunch of its stuff,
Have
but
you
like
actually played that?
no, I
Okay, because
haven't.
I was like, I haven't actually played that game, and I know that people fucking love it, and I'm like, I have not played it yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Animal won outstanding achievement in game direction, which was nice. And then yeah, so it's like game design, Astrobot, game of the online game went to Helldivers 2, mobile Balatro, indie game, I'd say achievement for an independent game, Balatro, or Balatro, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Reality game went to Batman. Uh, immersive reality tech. Oh, Starship Home. I never heard of that VR game. Like that sounds like a cool concept. I was like, I should check the one out eventually if I get a VR. Strategy simulator game went to Balatro. I had no love for Frostpunk 2, but okay. Sport. I don't care about sports games. Role playing game. Metaphor into Fantasio. Fighting game Tekken 8. Family game Astro Bot. And then I'm surprised Super Mario Party Jamboree didn't get that one. But adventure game Indiana Jones. Action game Helldivers 2. Technical achievement Astro Bot.
Indiana Jones is another one that I'm excited to play.
Yep. Outstanding achievement in story went to Indiana Jones, which is interesting. I would have thought that was going to go to Metaphor Fantasio. Audio design went to Helldivers. Original music went to Helldivers. Character went to Dr. Henry Jones.
Did Helldivers really have that good of music?
Well, I like the theme I hear all the time, like the dun 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 dun. Like it was like a big dun dun. Like it's got a great theme. But I haven't listened like too much of the other music, so I can't speak to it because I didn't. That's a game I wish I had played, but it was a situation like I had no one to play with, and I wasn't going to go queue up with randos.
Yeah, that's a game that like it seems like you needed to play it with other people to kind of get the full experience out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it also didn't seem like it was a small commitment. It seemed like that, like you had to really play it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I wish I did, but I didn't. But yeah, that was a.
It's a shame. Yeah, you have no friends.
Yeah, well, no friends are available. Like one has a new girlfriend. So it's like, oh shit, now I can't do anything. They're hiking. They got going. What the hell, man? They got a laptop. They can't play any games.
It's true.
No. Yeah. And Zaya's sleepy all the time.
Also true.
But usually I just gotta be like, hey Zaya, let's play games. And on the weekends, then we play games. Like that's how we kind of did Void Crew and whatnot, and Escape Room. But yeah, that was it for Dice Awards. Not much there, and I don't think I have anything else tagged. Yeah, nothing else tagged. So that was kind of it for the week. Like I said, good showcase, and Dice Awards. Like I said, it's got to be weird though, like going up there because always the one guy. It's kind of like the Nintendo guy that one year, where this year's like the one person going up accepting for Astro Bot. I'm like, man, like after the like third time, I don't know what the fuck I would say.
You just go up, you pick it up, and you're like, "Yep, thanks, see ya."
Yep, thanks. Yeah, I'm out. But all right, well, we'll go ahead and move on to what we've been playing. Isley, what have you been playing?
I've still been playing Nine Souls because that game is fucking long. Right. It is far longer than I kind of realized going in, and that's not a bad thing. Just I didn't expect a Metroidvania that is. This is going to sound like, well, why didn't you expect this, dumbass? But I didn't expect a Metroidvania with combat like Sekiro to be like a 40-hour game for some reason. But it's definitely like a 40-hour game. It is way longer than I thought it would be. And that's not a bad thing. I'm really enjoying it. It just is, did not expect it. But so I'm still playing Nine Souls. I made it to the last boss. I've pretty much fully unlocked the map. So, the last boss is extremely hard. I hit somewhat of a roadblock and I probably put like 3 hours into the last boss a day or two ago. And now I'm kind of just like at that phase where I just need to grind it out. But I've done everything else in the game. So it's less appealing to kind of like go back and grind it out. But I've really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really fun game. When I beat the last boss, then maybe I will have different opinions if I beat the last boss. But yeah, the combat in it was extremely satisfying and good. In terms of, everyone's going to compare it to like Souls games and Sekiro, which it's very similar to Sekiro. It's definitely got that satisfaction when you beat a boss where you just feel really good about yourself. Everything feels earned. The exploration in the game is not its strongest point, but as you get further in the game, the exploration does get better and it does get more enjoyable. It's just, if I had to like put one thing about it that keeps it from being phenomenal or like perfect, it's the exploration. For a Metroidvania, it's not quite there. But the art direction is gorgeous. The story is actually really kind of gripping and interesting, and I didn't expect that as well going into a game about like samurai cats. I didn't think the story would be so good, but all in all, like I've it's just a really fun game. Highly recommend it, but definitely don't go in unless you are expecting a challenge, because it is a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I could see it being something that maybe like I come back to down the line or something, like replay it. Kind of like Lies to be like, I obviously didn't play that back when it first came out.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I don't want to play a knockoff Souls game, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, I'll check it out like a year later. I'll probably get to it.
Yeah. I mean, it's very unique. Like, the only reason I say it's like Sekiro is because it has a really good parry system. So I
Mhm.
wouldn't even describe it as like a knockoff game. It's solely, I use that comparison because it just has a really good parry, and I don't feel like a lot of Metroidvanias actually have challenging combat. And the combat is challenging to the level of Sekiro, where it's kind of like a dance back and forth of trying to get the parries down. You aren't wearing them down in Sekiro. Like in Sekiro, you have to get 10 parries in a row or something, or you wear down their parry meter and then they're open for a critical strike. So it's not like that. In this game, it's much more like you are on the defense until you see an opening, and parries give you these abilities called talismans. And basically, like, you have two attacks. You have your, simplifying, there's more than two, but like it's essentially just two. So you have your weapon, your sword, and then you have your talisman. And your sword does okay damage. It's kind of low. But your talisman does like an explosion. But talismans, after you stick them on an enemy, they require you have to hold a button and charge it up. So you have to like pause for a second, stay still, charge it up, and then it explodes. So the combat ends up being this kind of like rhythmic thing where you're occasionally attacking with your sword, whittling them down a little. Then when they're attacking, you're parrying and defensive. And then when you finally see an opening, you drop a talisman on them for like a big explosion damage. And it just feels really good going back and forth. Then you get like an arrow ability that is kind of like an oh shit interrupt. So you basically have your main attack, then you have your arrow interrupt, and then you have your talisman for like big damage. And it just works really, really well. I am struggling on the last boss right now because I feel like it's the first boss in the game where the animations don't line up with the parry windows. Like, I feel like the parry timing is actually a second or like half a second delayed, but it's delayed just enough that I'm kind of like, this boss is going to be frustrating. This boss needed another like fine tune or pass at it. Something is strange with it. But it's a really solid game.
Yeah.
Play like the first hour of it or something and see if it clicks for you, because you'll be able to tell really quickly whether you actually like it or not in the first hour.
Yeah. It'll be on my list. I got other stuff to play. So I don't need to try right now. I want to make sure when I'm in the mood for it. Yeah, I've been playing, so I still playing Gray Zone. Having fun with that. The thing that I guess like, so back when they had the November update, it was like their last big update they had, which was the last time they had their wipe, and they introduced night ops. So they introduced a day-night cycle. Then like it was previously, it was just all day. But when they did that, they also retooled a couple of their tasks, like their missions that you do for the vendors, where they can only be done at night. So they have to be done between like 2200 and 0500, which is fine, whatever. But then like I got to a point this week where it was like I had some major tasks to do, but I can only do them between 2200 and 0500. But every time I was on, it was like morning, and I'm like, I don't want to wait 2 hours for the day cycle to go through to get to night. I don't have that kind of time. It's like I can't do anything. I can't make character progression because I'm like, I just kind of stuck. And I'm like I could go to a different server, I guess, but it's like then I just introducing lag and latency issues. I'm like, I don't want to do that. So I was like, all right, I guess I could just farm some gear or something, like, or help someone else out. I don't know what, but it was just like, damn it, I can't do anything. And then, so then yesterday when the kid went down for a nap, the little guy, I was like, okay, let's get in some gaming. And I hop in, and it was like, all right, it's like it's like 3:03 something. I'm like, oh, I have this one. I have to go to this place at night and get intel. I'm like, okay, let's go there. And I go there. I'm running around, and then I accidentally get killed by a NPC. I'm just quickly doing it on a PVE. And I'm like, I just want to get this done. So I'm on a time constraint because when you go to pick your server, you can see what time it is in the game on the server. And I die. I'm like, oh crap, I got to go back. So I go back and get my stuff, and I'm looking around, and like, it's like 04 something, and I'm like, oh no, I got to hurry up. And I'm like, but I'm taking it slow because I also don't want to get shot again. And then I'm like, time's ticking up, and it's like 0450 something. And I'm like, oh, I only got a couple in-game minutes. And I'm like, I think it's in this house. And I go in the house, it's the wrong house. I'm like, no. I'm like, okay, I have to Google where it is because I don't have time to like. Typically, I like to look like where something is, because they give you a pretty good description. So I'm like, okay, I gotta look at where is it. I'm like, oh, it is that house. That's right. I helped someone else kind of do this. So then I go back and I get it. Like I had like 2 in-game minutes left to get it, and I'm like, oh, thank God. And I'm like, I got it. And I'm like, motherfucker. I was so worried it was gonna flip over to pass 0500, and then I just failed the mission. But then what was I doing? I had to go back to that same area later once it was day. So it's like, okay, now that that's done, I'll swap to the PvP server, because now it's like I can go turn it in, and I wasn't under such big time constraints to get it done. I didn't want to worry about other players. Now I don't care. Now I can go back. I can do the mission I need. I had to like kill the leader of the area, the boss of like the rebel guys, or whatever. So I go on the PvP server. I fly into the place. It's like Banpod. It's like a really popular place. I feel like for missions. I've been there a lot, and like that's also where I've run into my most PvP is at Banpod. And so I go there, and I'm like, I run out of the helicopter. Every time we land, it's like a little heart race, because like, is there anybody here? Anybody waiting for their helicopter? And then I go into the town. I look for the dude. I know where they spawn. I go and find them. I kill them. I get out, and I'm on my way back. And I'm like, okay, we'll swoop around the bottom part of the point of interest along the water, and then go up to the landing zone I want to extract at. And I'm like, all right. Typically on PvP, I like to get really close and then hide in a bush and then call the thing. But because the server I was on had been pretty busy, the PvE server I was on was super busy, so it was hard to get a helicopter, that I was still like, okay, well, I don't want to run into that issue again now, so I'm just going to call in the helicopter now. It takes a little longer, but it estimates how long it's going to take you as the player to get to that landing zone. So it's not like when you call in, it's like it's always 30 seconds. It's like if you're 2 minutes away from the landing zone, it's going to say 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So I call it in. I approach down from the side. I'm like, okay, let's slowly make it in. There's like this field of some, tall reeds, kind of looks like corn. I'm like, okay, I can run through that if there's no one around. But then as I start moving in, another helicopter comes in. I'm like, that can't be my helicopter, because mine is like a minute something out. And I open up my map, and it's like enemy helicopter. I'm like, motherfucker. So I scoop back, and I'm watching it. I'm like, okay. I'm like, now I'm paranoid, because I'm like, shit. Now whoever lands, my helicopter's coming in shortly after. They're gonna notice it's not their team. So I'm like, okay, hopefully it's not a group of guys who are going south towards the like main. There's like a big point of interest that people farm south of where that spot is, and some people will sometimes land here, which is a little further away, especially if there's a lot of PvP happening at that point of interest. They don't want to land too close. And so I'm waiting. I can't see how many people are in the helicopter because there's a lot of bushes. And then I'm watching. I see like one guy. He's running towards Banpaw. I'm like, all right, he's going. I'm watching. I'm just watching the time. I'm like, if this guy. As my helicopter comes, like 30 seconds. And I'm like, if my helicopter comes and this dude turns around and looks, I'm taking him out. And then they're also kind of wearing like level 1-ish gear. And I'm like, okay. Not like level 1, like character, but like vendor level 1, like low level gear. I'm like, they look low level, so not like, high teched out or whatever. But I'm like, I'm watching them. Sure enough, as soon as my helicopter comes in, they stop and they like turn around and look. And they didn't open up their map because I didn't see him pull out their tablet. But I was like, I got to take him out. So I shoot the guy, take him out, and then I run up. I gave him a couple pop shots, and they fell down. I was like, okay, let's double check, make sure they didn't just fall, like crouch in a bush or whatever. And I get up and he's like in open comms, because I guess he didn't get killed. He got put into a coma. He's like, damn man. He's like, which side do you want? I'm like, not yours. I was like, I couldn't risk you shoot me when I got him a helicopter. He's like, all right. And he's like, I'm bleeding out here. I'm like, yeah. And you can heal enemy factions, but I didn't have a blood bag on me. I was like, you know what? I'll just leave your stuff here. You can go ahead and respawn, come back with just your knife, and pick up all your loot. I just want to get out of here, man. And I just left.
What side are you on? Not yours.
Yeah, because he's probably like, "What was that, a friendly?" And I was like, "Nope." I'm looking at the map, because you can't see, like, they do have faction tags on like shoulders, like a little patch, but it's hard to see that when like shit's going down. But I was like, if I had a blood bag, I might have revived him and be like, okay, truce, because I've always thought about that, like, especially if I like, because that one time I talked about, I think on the podcast last week, where it was like when I landed and there was a dude waiting for his helicopter, but he shot at me, so I killed him. It's like, if you had just been quiet, I would have let you just extract. And he didn't know that, but like I'll just let you leave. You can just go out. Like I just want to go do my mission, man. I'm not here to PvP at the landing zone. Like that's not where you do it. Like typically people, on the Discord, they'd be like, "Hey, PvP event, this server at this point of interest," and it's like that's where people will go specifically to do PvP. But I had a really fun one. I think it was this week where it was like I went to go do a task at the sawmill, and it was like I had to go do something, whatever, yada yada. So I go there and it's like find the source of contamination. It's called like upstream. Like okay, I'll just assume, man, that's before I get into this. That's one thing is like early on, I feel like a lot of the tasks they give you good directions on where to look to where it's kind of intuitive. Like I had one where it's like there's this airfield and it's like, oh, I need this one person's like the vendor's like, I need you to look for so and so. They were a pilot they were running stuff for this thing when shit went down. See if you can find what happened to them. I'm like, okay, well, you talk about how they were specifically a pilot. So I'm like, let's go on the end of the runway and see if maybe they got shot down. And so sure enough, I run to the end of the runway. I kind of like go a little further off the runway into the bushes. Eventually I find like a groove in the ground and there's a downed plane. And I'm like, okay. And then I find what happened to them. That's good. And there's one that's like, oh, hey, I need you to find, there's some hidden intel inside a purple suitcase at the airport location. So I go there and I'm just looking for a purple suitcase to interact with. And it's like, okay, that's easy. But then there's sometimes they give you ones that are like, oh, there was one that's like, hey, someone ran away with his wife's worried about where this guy is. He ran west of this major point of interest. I'm like, there's a lot of ground between here and there. And typically it's like when they tell you to look somewhere, it's like if you zoom in on the map, because it's like satellite photos, you can see like little stuff in the jungle to be like, oh, this looks like a downed helicopter, or this looks like a little shack here. It'll stand out. And it was like they were basically at this other point of interest that I have been going to, and they were tied up and being used as, everybody you look for in that game, they're always dead. If you're trying to look for someone, they're dead. And they were tied up to like at the shooting range, and they were being used as target practice, so I can find them there, yada yada. But that was like I had trouble with that one. I'm like, how am I gonna look? Because typically I just run between the point they mention and look everywhere in between. But that was kind of far. And then there was another one where what was it? It was like I forget. I wish I remember what the mission type was. Oh, it was like it was in Vanpaw. It's like I need you to collect a sample from a dove thing or whatever, like in a little bird cage essentially. The well and some dirt. I'm like, okay, well, I found the bird cage. You're just like looking like, oh, there's like a bird house essentially, and then you go up to it, it's like interact. And I found the well because it's a fucking well. But I'm like, a mound of dirt, and I'm like, where the hell do I find this? And like, I couldn't figure where that one was. And it's like, oh, you have to go. There's this random spot with some dirt, and there's like this post that's in it or something. You interact with the post or whatever. I'm like, what? And like that was the one that was like annoying. I'm like, okay, it's not quite. It's like I feel like as I'm going along, a lot of the tasks are like they're getting a little more, I don't know, broad, I suppose. Like, how the hell am I supposed to find this? But yeah, so sometimes
Amount of dirt seems pretty pretty vague.
Yeah, because there was like I did find like one spot in this back path I took earlier was like there's this big old mound of dirt part, and I thought like, oh, maybe it's this because like why would there be a big old mound of dirt on this walking path? Like, no, that's not it. It's like okay, whatever. But there's one that's like, hey, look for find out if they're doing drugs or something, or making drugs here, or chemicals or something. And I remember seeing like a chemistry set somewhere. I'm like, okay, clearly that's where it's going to be. So I knew that's where it would be because I've seen it. And it's like you're just looking through the buildings and whatnot. Like a lot of them are very good. There's one where like I had to like find a manifest on a computer, and that was kind of tough at the airport because I had to like go look at every computer. I think the one that actually had it was like the room was kind of lit in such a way that's like, okay, this seems like it. But anyways, I had a lot of fun there. But when I went and did the one mission at the sawmill, like eventually I went, did the mission, went upstream, found a truck that was dumping chemicals, came back, and then like I heard shots. Friendly faction player was on the other side of the point of interest. He was kind of watching them. He got killed. He tells me, hey, there's people there. And essentially it gets to the thing where I'm sneaking around one side and he's sneaking around the other side. And the dude runs up. I kill one guy. I'm like, I got one. And there's a second guy. Second guy gets me. And we get like this. I was going to hop in and just do a couple tasks, and it turned into like to an hour of this standoff with the enemy factions. And like, because we killed them, then they killed us. And then we went back and killed one of them, and they got him. And then the other one like snuck away. And it was just really fun. I came out net positive on gear, which is good. But it was just really tense of like trying to sneak around and be quiet. One to just chucking grenades a bunch. It was a fun time. But anyways, good time in that game. And then Icarus did a patch this week where they a feature that people have been wanting was like tree regrowth. It's like, and I don't know if I don't remember if Sons of the Forest does this, but like in the forest, like you can turn on like do trees come back, yada yada.
Yeah, you can change that in Sons of the Forest.
Yeah, and they
or
have like
in the
that
forest rather.
Yeah, and I always turn that off. I'm like, I don't need them to come back, just keep them down. But they don't trees don't grow back in Icarus. So they're trying to figure out a way, like, okay, because obviously they don't want like people building these giant sprawling bases or whatever, and then trees just destroy them. Because like you can chop out the stump for resources, so it's like you'd have to remember like exactly where. Versus like the forest, it's like the stump is still there. So they're like, oh, we introduced this feature where it's something you have to unlock and you build, and essentially it does tree regrowth in an AoE. And I'm like, that's a really smart way to do it. To be like, yes, you have regrowth, so you can get those resources back, but you choose the area that it can happen. And I'm not sure, like, if you pick like a spot that never had trees before, do trees randomly grow there over time? How long does it take? Or does it have to be a spot that had trees to begin with, and you have to lead the stump? Like, I haven't dug into it enough. Like, the patch notes didn't specify, but I'm curious. I'm sure it'll say, like, on the item description. I thought that was pretty cool. I haven't gone back in there and played that for a bit, but I do want to go back to Icarus and play some. But I haven't played Outer Wilds. I can't really say how far I am. I feel like I've done, like, a ton of progress.
That's a game where it is challenging to gauge how far you are just because of the nature of the game.
Yeah, like, when I look at the, like, computer board where it's like, hey, here's all the stuff, all the rumors. Like, I'm like, okay, there's a shit ton of stuff here. Like, I know what I'm doing. I know what the precursors are doing. I like the Nomai or whatever. Like, I know what they were doing, yada yada. And I'm like, okay. But the one thing that's interesting about that game that kind of got me a little bit was like, so I'm going to spoil a bit of stuff that happens. It's like typically in any other game, if you learn about something, which is the solution to something else, then it's like, okay, now go execute on that thing. So like, there's a bit where I find, I was going to, like, I went to Dark Bramble like pretty early on, just to like explore. I'm like, okay, we're in Mario 8-3. The way it just keeps like looping. And then, but I wasn't going there like following, the signal of the dude playing the harmonica, whatever. And later I'm like, oh, I should go follow that signal since that's in there. And that like leads me towards the light, yada yada. And I find him and like, oh, I got to the center of the storm. And I'm like, how did you do that? And he's like, oh, I can't tell you. But why don't you go to the back of the tail of the fish and then yada yada. So I did that. I find the jellyfish and the log. It's like, oh, don't eat it. It's yucky. But they must have, like, the exterior of it is like really good at insulating them from the electricity. I'm like, okay, well, clearly this in any other game indicates to me that I should harvest the jellyfish to make some sort of suit and or protective stuff for the ship to go into the center of this place.
Yep.
And I'm like, because that's how it would work. I'm like, but then you also, once you do that and you leave, you can't go back to him. So I was going to go back to him to talk to him and be like, hey, I found that jellyfish. And maybe he like say something new. And you can't go back to him once you do that. Like, you're just cut off. You can find the signal, but once you get to where he would be, it's the seed and he's gone. Like, you can't get to him anymore. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So I was like, why won't it let me go back to this guy? And then, so I'm like, okay, fine. And then later, when I was on the Ash Twins, I was running around doing some stuff. And then I went on the one side that doesn't have the sand, like the bottom of the hourglass that doesn't have the sand yet. And I was like running around, and it's like, because I was following the signal, the emergency signal. And I was like, okay, let's go back at the start of the cycle and go down here. And they find a thing like, oh, we found a anglerfish skeleton, and we thought it find a way that we might be able to avoid them in Dark Bramble. I'm like, in my head, I was like, oh, well, I've already met the guy there who told me about the jellyfish. I don't need to dodge the anglerfish, because this seems like something that a tool to help you get somewhere that maybe might be difficult if like the anglerfish were more aggressive trying to get to that guy. Like, I'm like, okay, I've already done it. It's like, here's just an easier path. I've done that in games where it's like, oh, there's a bunch of wolves. And it's like, oh, well, maybe if you cover yourself in pee, you can get past the wolves. I'm like, this is Metal Gear. But anyway, so I was like, okay, I don't need to worry about the anglerfish, whatever. I'm just going to keep exploring Ash Twin, yada, yada. And then later on, I forget what I was doing. I was like, oh, I hate when it's like, oh, there's still more to do here in a place. And like, I just forgot like one line of dialogue on like a board where I'm reading it, like, the scribbles of the words. I'm like, I missed one branch, and it's like, there's still more to do here. And I go there,
Yeah.
I'm like, it's just old lore I've already learned somewhere else. Like, I've heard about this elsewhere. I don't need it anymore. But it annoys me when it's like, there's more stuff. I'm like, God damn it, man. Like, that happened to me on one of the places. I was like, I must have just missed one. And I kept being like, what the hell did I miss? I did everything at this point of interest. There's nothing I can do here. And it's like, let's just redo the dialogue piece, reading the book. And it's like the scroll. And I'm like, I missed like one little part of it. And it's like, whatever. I was so annoyed. Like, I hate that. I was like, damn it. But then it was like, we learned about something. It's like, okay, the vessel's at the center of the storm. I'm like, okay, well, to get there, I need to get to. All right, I found like where was I? I was someplace. I think it was in Brittle Hollow, and it was like I just like jumped somewhere really quick. I got to some little city, and I saw like a mural. It's like, oh, here's the vessel, and then it shot off the 3 escape pods, but the vessel got trapped in Dark Bramble. I'm like, oh, okay, let's go back to Dark Bramble, because I had been wondering like, what's the red light in Dark Bramble? Because I had looked at it at one point, and I thought like, oh, maybe it's in my head I was like, it's an anglerfish that's doing it wrong. And then because then I got immediately when I was thinking about it at the start of one stream, I got attacked by an anglerfish, and I was like, I panicked. And then he ate me. But I never went back to it. And I'm like, oh, let's put on the distress thing. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can follow the red.
An anglerfish that's doing it wrong. Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, you never know, man. This game's, again, the jellyfish thing's annoying me because I'm like, I can't harvest the jellyfish. Like, because then I go back to the storm planet and like, there's the jellyfish that's in the ice in the bramble. And I'm like, but I can't interact with it to like, oh, this is the one because it's fresh and it hasn't been carved up. You should carve out the stuff, yada, yada, get it. And I'm like, okay, whatever. But then my assumption was like, oh, now if I go to the observatory in the south part of Brittle Hollow, that'll tell me, I'll find out about the controlling the storms and how to get in there, which will let me get to the one that's at the center of that and yada, yada. Anyways, and like that'll maybe help me with the jellyfish, or like it's just I learned about the jellyfish, but they already knew about the jellyfish, the Nomai, whatever. And it's like, okay, yada, yada. So it's like, it doesn't matter. I don't need to do anything with the jellyfish. But I'm thinking of it in like order of operations for other games. Like, you learn a way to help you get past an obstacle, harvest that thing to do it, and then go to the obstacle. Like, but it's like, it's just not the case so far. Or maybe it is, but it's later. But and then I was like, oh, I go into the place. I followed the distress signal through the red, and then it was like there was like 3 anglerfish at one point, and I'm like, oh my god, they got me. And I'm like, okay. Then I went back in. I'm like, let's just go fast. And I got in there, found the other distress beacon. And I hate going there because they're just saying the same things I already know about. Like, oh, there's duplicate beacons and yada yada. I'm like, yeah, I know. I've seen this. Like, it was kind of useless. So I'm like, okay, well, I gotta fully explore this place to check off the list. And I found the other recording device. And then it's like, okay, well, if the vessel is still trapped here, I gotta find that. But in order to find that, I'm probably gonna have to go to the Southern Observatory to learn about the storm, to get in there and yada yada, and then eventually, find the vessel and all this jazz and yada yada. But it was like, I wish there were sometimes ways I could take off the suit without requiring the use of the ship, because I hate when it's ever like I fall into the black hole by mistake. Like, it happened twice trying to get to the Southern Observatory in Brittle Hollow, because like you have to walk along the gravity crystal walls, and then like I fell because I realized I stepped out of the range of the crystal, so I fall down into the black hole. I was like, no, damn it. And then I'm just on the other side of space. I'm like, well, my ship didn't fall with me because it's on the surface. So now I'm just stuck here. Like,
sometimes the suit stuff in that game and the ship stuff is definitely frustrating. Like, that was a game where I loved the story and the loop and like I guess just the style of like how everything unfolds. And the suit and the ship is annoying. The ship, I never super got used to like how the ship controlled in general. I found that a bit annoying. It has its moments of frustration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the autopilot sucks in that game.
Yes,
like it needs line of sight. Like, I was talking to someone in the chat, they're like, "Oh, use autopilot." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's gonna run me right into this planet." And sure enough, it like runs me almost in the sun. I'm like, "This autopilot sucks." Like, you have to have line of sight. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's just it's like the problem is I get to the thing where it's like a game where it lets you go anywhere. I'm like, okay, in the first couple of hours, it's like, I'm just gonna go everywhere. I go to all the planets, all the places, you learn stuff. Then you get to the point where it's like, okay, I need to focus, because if I don't focus on one thing, and I just keep getting distracted by this and that, it's like I'm not going to make real progress.
You won't have time. You get to a point in the game where you can't explore anymore, and you need to have actual goals of what you're going to accomplish and do.
Yeah, which is nice that at least they have that, like, okay, I can look at something and it has like an orange thing, like there's more to do here. It's like, is there really? There better be. But it's like, okay, I know I need to get like to this place. I hate whenever I go somewhere, I'm like, I focus on, okay, let's focus on this, and I go there and it's like it just loops around to something else. I'm like, yeah, I know it loops around to this. Like it's in the same tree. Like, what do you mean? Like this is so useless. Like why? But yeah, I just like, okay, now I got to do the observatory. Like I found the dial, like there's the dial on the Ash Twins that tells you where the moon is, which is so funny when like, because when I first saw the moon, I didn't realize like it didn't click right away that was the phantom moon that they were chasing. Like I saw, I was like, hey, look at this moon around Dark Bramble, and then I looked at Dark Bramble in the ship. I'm like, there's no moon there, and I go back to the map, like it's gone. I'm like, that's weird. And then it was like I kept seeing it every now and then. I'm like, oh, this is just gonna be the phantom moon, and then eventually, finally, I flew. Like the first time I flew into it, nothing happened, and then I was, oh, I have to have that stupid signal thing out in order for it to say this is the phantom moon. So then it adds it to my list. But I like when it shows up at the start of a new cycle and your character sees it and then they blink and then it's gone. That was always fun. But yeah, I wish I kind of didn't know about the DLC name, because like I feel like once I learned about them calling it the Eye, I'm like, okay, well I know what the DLC is called, so I wish I didn't know that yet. That way it'd be more, or like if I knew about it, I knew about it after the game, I suppose, because I'm like, I don't know, it kind of influences your thoughts on where the game might go if there's a DLC called, what it is. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. Like even if I, like last night when I was playing, like I might not have made like major progress. I did check some things off my list, but it's like at least I am essentially like filling out a codex of information. It's like, which I'm sure is like part of the trophy of like make sure you learn everything, right? So it's like I'm not trying to go for a trophy, but or an achievement since it's on Steam. But it's like, at least it's something. It's checking off little boxes that might be irrelevant, but it's still progress. It's not like I just floated around doing nothing. Like I'm getting something at least.
Yeah. The DLC is a good point. That's kind of an interesting one that I played the DLC afterwards, but yeah, it does, thinking about it, I'm like, that does sort of influence it. I see how that happens.
Yeah. It's like, it'd be like, I was trying to think of an example of like an extreme example of a game. But I couldn't think of it. Just where it's like, it's because it's not like necessarily spoiler, but it's definitely like influential and like, okay, well now it's making me think about this thing. It's like, kind of like when you watch a show after 3 seasons are out, it's like, okay, well if there's 3 more seasons of the show, then certain things can't happen, or if they do happen, they have to get reversed somehow. But yeah, I'm like, okay, well if you have a whole DLC dedicated to this one thing, then clearly we're not going to get all the answers, or any answers perhaps in here. But
it's hard. I wish I could ask you questions about like where you're at in the story, but like because of how you're exploring, there's no safe way to ask these questions.
Well, yeah, like I wish I should take a picture of what the board looks like. I have so much of the board. Like I know about the vessel, I know about the eye. I found the thing on the Astral Twins that like tracks it. I know I have to get to the like I found the escape pods from the vessel. I've explored all those. I got to get to the center of the southern observatory and put a hollow to figure out how to control the storms on the stormy planet, so I can get to the center of that planet, which has the other thing in it, the probe in it, which I could see when I looked at the probe control station. It's like I got to get in there, but what about the jellyfish? How does that tie in? And it's just like, yeah. So I feel like I'm at the end, like I'm in the end game now. It's like if I knew how to, like if I played the game previously, I'm sure like a speed run. Like I'm really curious about speed runs for this game, like glitchless speed runs. Because I'm like sure it's like, oh, I could probably just get to the end now. But because I don't know anything, I'm like, okay, well, which things am I doing are actually important? Like, maybe I do have the tools, kind of like a Tunic thing, where it's like maybe I could get past this door, but I don't know that I have to do the directions on the D-pad kind of thing. Like, oh, I could get through this if I knew the actual function, but I haven't learned it in game yet. So it's like, okay, well, how much of this that I explain? Because like the one bit where it's like when they go onto the Ash Twins. And they're like, oh, we're going to go down into the little city that gets filled up with sand, and you have to like speed run your way through it. I'm like, okay, I learned about, like, I get down there at one point and I learned about them utilizing the black holes and white holes and the 22-minute process and yada yada. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But I already know that they have this black hole, white hole technology because I learned about it in other points of interest. So like, I'm just wasting time doing this, and it's filling up with sand. I'm like, why did I go down here? Like, I know this. Like, it's fun to see that little room where they mess around. But yeah, hold on one sec.
Happy child noises.
No, he was trying to open the office door. But yeah, it's a fun time.
I just heard like wee. Hold on a sec.
He was trying to get in here. But yeah, it's a fun time. I look forward to playing more of it. But kind of reminds me of like I was like, man, that'd be fun to like. I wish I like Forgotten City was like a good time.
It's a fun game. Similar. I liked it. I also actually did really enjoy the DLC. I don't know if you're planning on playing the DLC right away or not, but I thought the DLC was good.
Yeah, I'll probably play it. Maybe not right away, but I'll play it. Yeah, that's basically what I've been doing. I'll just chipping away at that. All right, well, I guess we can go ahead and call it there. I don't have anything else. I'll save the one thing I was going to bring up for later since we went long because of the recap of the state of play and what have you. But all right, well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. So thank you all for tuning and listening. Thank you, Izzy, for joining.
Yep.
And we'll see you all next time.
Later.